Okay, today's gonna be a short day. There's so much crap going on this week with Thanksgiving. I've been making a puff pastry for some Danishes for Thanksgiving, and then I got work, and then yeah, a bunch of stuff going on. It's just gonna be a shorter episode today. I'm still tidying up code. It's pretty, this one's looking pretty good actually. Our vulture class isn't so bad. Wow, this is cool. So we're setting how often the AI jumps, or flaps rather. We just give it a table of a bunch of different values. And most of those values are under a second. And then some of those values are up to 5 seconds. And then we flap anytime we just jump if our time between jumps is 0, and we decrement by our time between jumps. So that's cool. It'll flap, at a random interval based on all these. So when we do our AI for the tier system, we're gonna have to change that, make it a little more aggressive, or it depends on what we want to do. This is all looking fine to me. Actually, we don't need this self.egg anymore, because I don't think we are referencing it anywhere else. Actually, we are. Shoot. Yeah, this is all wrong. Let me check. So look, we have the egg invulnerable here in our vulture class as a field attached to our instantiation, but I believe we moved that. Yeah, look right here, invulnerable timer. Invulnerable timer. -4 versus... Okay, and then when do we instantiate the invulnerable timer? I think we do that in the play state. Maybe not. Invulnerable timer. We do it right here, 0.7. Okay. So instead of having it in our vulture class with a 0.4, 0.4 is closer to the real value we want to do. I've just had it at 0.7 because it gives us that extra bit of safety to not collide with it so that we can test it for hashing. So that's why we had it at such a high number. But we can now delete this and then go to our invulnerable timer and change it to something like 0.5. Okay. So I guess, I think this is all kind of self-explanatory. It's small enough, it's 100 lines. half of them are functions and inits. So the update is only like a third of the total code. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Old egg hatching animation. We fix this. We'll just put egg hatching animation. Okay. It's all looking pretty good. Yeah, I'm not too worried about cleaning up much of anything else. Playstate was the big one. Ostrich is the big one, and Ostrich is pretty clean. We don't have these indents set exactly right. It's weird that this deletes it or moves. Yeah, it's weird. What's happening? Okay. I think this is okay. It's so nice to see it all cleaned up like this. I feel like this should be bottled in with this. Then we can close it nice. So yeah, pretty self-explanatory there. We had to populate our last input with a field. Otherwise, it was crashing. So we've got a random ass last input gets right there, which is kind of funny. But I bet if we turn that off, it breaks. Let's see. So we run fine. And then if we turn off this last input gets right. Well, I didn't see the vulture explosion animation there. Did we lose that? Yeah, we lost the vulture explosion. When did we lose that? We've got to fix that. Yeah, there's no explosion. Shoot. Vulture explosion. Yeah, look at this. Oh, we took out self-exploded. Yeah, we took out self-exploded. Yeah. Well, no, we have it here, but we stopped. We need to turn exploded to true. we'll need to say if exploded. Because right here we're saying if not exploded, then we're saying else, so that should be all the if exploded, and then we would need to say if self dot explosion timer is greater than 0.2, then we are no longer exploded. But we need to trigger this self-exploded to get true upon a collision in our play state, so that we can render the explosion, because we are, oh, I just canceled that out. Vulture. If we're exploded, we render the explosion frames based on this explosion timer. And then we just need to trigger this boolean to get set true upon the collision. Right now, I think we have for if the vultures exploded. Oh, we do have the vultures exploded. Let's see if what we did fixed it. No. Yeah, it fixed it. That's so strange, because we are setting the vulture to be exploded. And we are rendering, oh, that's the thing. We're rendering, we move it to the graveyard upon the, that's it. We move it to the graveyard that very next frame. So it's rendering the explosions at the graveyard area. But if we say, no, we're rendering it at our last X and last Y, so it should still work actually. This is a little confusing to me. We are exploded. What do we do if our first frame exploded? We just swap our egg instantiation, right? What the heck? Do we do that in egg? Are you kidding me? Did we take that out? Where do we do egg instantiations? Oh God, where do we do egg instantiation? It would be under, really? Yeah, we do it here. Okay, let me just print up the last X of our vulture 1 here and make sure that's working properly. Last X of vulture 1 dot last X, and we're going to make sure that vulture 1's last X is getting populated correctly, so that we can determine, okay, yeah, it's still staying. So why are we not doing the explosion? Oh, it's because we're rendering it if it's not in the graveyard. we need something a little different than that, because we want to also render it if explosion timer is not the time vulture explosion timer. So we can also render it if the explosion timer is, or instead of graveyard, we do exploded, because exploded doesn't get set to false. Wait, hold on. No, that doesn't right. That's not right. That's not right. Maybe we say, yeah, if explosion timer is greater than 0.2. In our play state here, we can say we render our vultures if we're not in graveyard, or if vultures at the ith index dot explosion timer is smaller than 0.2, because it'll get bigger up until 0.2. So, and this vulture explosion timer explosion timer is smaller than 0.2. So either we have to be not in the graveyard, or our explosion timer has to be smaller than 0.2. But let me actually double check. Our explosion timer gets set to 0, so it should render. So that's probably not quite right. Maybe we would say, shoot, yeah, how would we do this? Or if vulture's explosion timer does not equal 0, that would mean that it would be exploded. And then we can say explosion timer gets 0 once it's passed. If explosion timer is greater than 0.2, then we actually set it back to 0, which will make the explosion timer equal to 0, which will cease to render our vulture because we are in the graveyard, or the timer is 0. So maybe that will show up our explosion on our vultures now. We're looking for that little pop of explosion. Nice. Oh, it's just the wrong color. So we need to set our color right here. We'll just say if we're exploded, set the color to white, render explosion frames. Yep, nice. We got the pop now. That's sick. I'm surprised we didn't notice that last time, but I'm glad we fixed it. And it seems to be working fine with the last X and everything. So we'll just delete our debugging for now for it. And then I think we're ready to start our tier system update. So what do we call, sounds like an opening for a bad joke, what do we call the vultureless jockey class? What do we call that? Do we call it sentry? I don't know. What's the definition of sentry? Soldier station to keep guard. It's not really a sentry. What would be the vultureless jockeyless vulture that runs in to go pick up the jockey? What is something that goes to pick up a passenger? Call it a taxi cab? I kind of like taxi cab. Yeah, let's just go for just taxi cab. I think that's funny. So we can give ourselves a new file in our source folder called taxi.lua. And if we save it, we'll save it in our source with the rest of our classes. And then we'll say taxi gets class brackets. And then we'll need 3 functions. We'll need a taxi init. We'll need a taxi update. And update has delta time pass through it. And our last one, taxi render, takes in no arguments. Cool. So our taxi, first of all, if we've got this class, we need to go into our because the thing is, we need taxi to be a class because it's code we're going to be reusing, and there could be 3 taxi objects on stage, so it makes sense we can put them in a class, keep track of their stuff, and update as appropriate. Because you could technically get like 3 eggs on stage in wave 1, have them all hatch at the same time, and have 3 taxis on it all at once. So if we go into our constants, do we not have our constants? Oh no, dependencies is what we want. We want to tell our program that we have a new class. So we say in our source taxi file, kind of import the taxi class there so that we can actually use a taxi instantiation here. And if we take a look at our ostrich gets class curly braces, and our taxi gets class curly braces. So if we take a look at our ostrich, it's 16 by 24. When we instantiate player 1, where's player 1? Here, 16 by 24. So that's our, we have self.width gets 16, self.height gets 24, and then we'll need parameters in our init field to be an X and a Y. And a width and a height, and then probably like a spawn location or something. But we won't worry about that just yet. We'll pass in the arguments when we initialize it, but we'll have to just put the parameters here to assign them. To assign them into our field variables here, and then we'll say also self.x gets the x parameter, self.y gets the y parameter, and we'll need to say it'll need to have a DX. So we'll say self.dx gets 0 to start out with because I still have to figure out how that works. So for now, I've just made a little template of this very bare bones class. Next episode, if we have enough time, because I still got to prep Thanksgiving stuff and then I got to work, and it's gonna. If I got enough time tomorrow, I might make our taxi sprite, which is just like this. You know, it's a vulture without a jockey on it. So there's 3 different ones. So here's the Bounder taxi, Hunter taxi, and Shadowlord taxi. So we'll have to do those sprites, we'll have to import those sprites, and then we'll have to do animation for those sprites, and then we have to figure out the AI for the location and the update function for our taxi objects. Then we gotta instantiate them anytime a jockey's on screen, and then we gotta delete them if a jockey gets captured, you know, stuff like that. So it's gonna be a lot of work, and then the new AI for the new vultures, which we have to do the new sprites and the new AI for all those vultures. So it's gonna be a big process. Jeez, yeah, it's gonna be a big process. But one step at a time. Didn't code too much today, but at least I coded today. We fixed a bug with the explosions. We added a couple new names, organization for our documentation cleanliness. We added those renders, and then we started adding our new taxi class. So not too much, but we got a chunk done, and at least when I come back, it's not like we have to start the new class update from scratch. We at least have the class kind of in place. I want to make sure the code runs without crashing before we commit. And it seems to be fine. So in our commit, we'll add everything to the staging area with a commit message saying fixed or added explosion sprite to vulture death, and then added taxi class template. And then short episode, but we got something done. It's been a long day, and I just got stuff to do, so I will catch you guys tomorrow, and maybe we'll do some taxi sprites and then get working on the rest of the tier system update.